This guide covers all the actions Dawntrail's Rogue and Ninja learns from level 1 to 100 in order. We go over how each action is meant to be used and recommend ways to use it when relevant. We will summarize the attack rotation at level 50 and then summarize changes in it at level 60, 70, 80 and 90. In the final summary at level 100, we outline an optimized opener and explain how it leads into the general rotation, alongside 2-minute burst considerations. We also touch on the stat priorities of the ninja. Now then, Spinning Edge is your starting weapon skill. It is the first step in a 3-step combo, more commonly called a 1-2-3 combo, so at this point, you simply use it repeatedly. At level 2, you learn the ability Shade Shift, which puts a shield on you. Use it when you're actively taking damage, or when you're expecting to take damage, from a party-wide attack from a boss for example. Note that abilities like Shade Shift can be used while the global recast timer from weapon skills like Spinning Edge is still active. Fitting abilities between weapon skills is commonly known as weaving, and you can typically fit 1 to 2 abilities between 2 weapon skills. If you would like to know more about this subject, I have a video that goes more in depth on this, link in the description. At level 4, you learn the weapon skill Gust Slash, which is your step 2 in your 1-2-3 combos. At this point, you simply alternate between Spinning Edge and Gust Slash. At level 8, you learn the role action and ability Second Wind, which heals you for a significant amount. When in a group, it is recommended to only use Second Wind if you are the only one that needs significant healing, as otherwise the healer will probably cast a party-wide heal anyway. At level 10, you learn the ability Hide, which makes most enemies ignore you, but also makes you move slower. Be aware that, unfortunately, this effect is immediately cancelled if someone in your party enters combat with a boss, and you cannot use it while in combat. Also, bosses can see through your invisibility, so walking too close to a boss will also cancel the effect. You also learn the ability Leg Sweep, which stuns your target, which can stop enemies with telegraphed attacks with cast times. As a stun, it can also be used to help give your tank a bit of breathing room by stopping at least one enemy in its tracks for a bit. At level 12, you learn the role action and ability Bloodbath, which adds a life-stealing effect to your attacks. If you're actively taking damage or need a lot of healing over a longer period of time, then Bloodbath is likely stronger than Second Wind, and using both at the same time may sometimes be excessive and cause you to lack options later. At level 14, you learn the trait All Fours, which makes you take less fall damage. Take note that you cannot actually die from fall damage if you're not in combat, and you usually don't take fall damage at all in duties. At level 15, you learn the weapon skill Throwing Dagger, which has a range of 20 yalms. Keep in mind that the base run speed is 6 yalms, meaning in the recast time of Throwing Dagger, you can run 15 yalms, significantly more if you sprint. As such, it is not always worth casting Throwing Dagger as you close in on enemies. However, if you're forced away from your target for a bit, you can cast Throwing Dagger to keep up some damage output. Throwing Dagger does not cancel your combos. You also learn the ability Mug, which does some damage and increases the damage the enemy takes from everyone for 20 seconds. You should make sure to weave this between your weapon skills on cooldown to maximize the value of the damage and the damage bonus it provides. It also has a bonus effect of sometimes making an enemy drop extra common loot if you use this action on them. However, this effect is not worth planning around, although it is interesting to know. At level 18, you learn the ability Trick Attack, which can only be used when affected by Hide and does a large amount of damage, even more if you use it while behind your target. It also increases the damage you do to the enemy for 15 seconds. Remember though, that entering a boss fight immediately removes Hide, meaning this action is only really usable outside of boss fights at this level. It is a good idea to use Trick Attack regularly if you can, due to the damage bonus and the upfront damage it provides. Just don't awkwardly walk in Hide towards a pack for 15 seconds just for this. It isn't worth that. At level 20, you learn the trait Fleet of Foot, which makes you always run 10% faster. This does not stack with any other movement speed increases, so sprint still only makes you run 30% faster in total. At level 22, you learn the role action and ability Feint, which causes your target to do less damage for a bit, with physical damage being reduced twice as much. The best time to use Feint is when you're expecting a large amount of damage from an enemy, especially if you know it will be physical. Good examples include when a boss is casting a party-wide attack or a large strike on the tank. At level 26, you learn the weapon skill Aeolian Edge, which serves as the combo finisher for your 1-2-3 combo. It also does significantly more damage when used while behind your target, which is indicated by the open part of the targeting reticle. If there is no open part, then positional benefits like this usually automatically succeed. At level 30, doing your class quest line will eventually lead you to the ninja quest, which is available once you complete the main scenario quest, Self Management. Once you unlock the ninja, remember to equip your soul crystal to change into the ninja job. The ninja starts with 2 actions. The first is the ability Ninjutsu, which fires off whichever ninjutsu you have currently done mudras to activate. The second action is the ability Ten, which is a mudra used for ninjutsus. There are no ninjutsus that require the same mudra to be done twice, and as such, you have access to just one ninjutsu at this time. The first ninjutsu, Fuma Shuriken, does a large amount of damage at range. An odd thing about the ninjutsu and mudra abilities is that they incur global recast timers just like weapon skills. These global recast timers are significantly shorter than the regular global recast timer. You want to make use of ninjutsu as often as you can to get the most damage out of it, as it is your most powerful option. It also does not break your combo. Keep in mind that you have to perform your mudras and then ninjutsus uninterrupted by any other actions, otherwise your Fuma Shuriken is replaced by a harmless but very adorable bunny in a black mage outfit. A few other features about ninjutsu. You can hold up to 2 charges of it at a time, but only 1 charge will cool down at a time, so every 20 seconds you will get 1 use, but you could wait 40 seconds and use 2 back to back. Also, using Hide will immediately give you both of your ninjutsu charges back. As such, if you're ever out of combat and are not at full ninjutsu charges, you should use Hide. You can cancel Hide again by right-clicking the buff in your buff list, which I highly recommend you do so you don't fall behind. You can also use a macro to remove the Hide buff. As Mug increases the damage your target takes, stockpiling a charge of ninjutsu when Mug is about to be ready can be beneficial. At level 32, you learn the role action and ability Arm's Length, which makes you immune to most knockbacks, and also has the additional effect that if an enemy swings at you, it reduces their attack speed for a while. This is a very strong defensive tool if you need it, so consider using this ability when you're targeted by enemies, especially if the tank dies, for instance. At level 35, you learn the ability Chi, which is a mudra for ninjutsus. This gives you access to 2 new ninjutsus. If you use Chi, 10, ninjutsu turns into Katon, a fireball attack that does a large amount of area of effect damage, or AoE for short. If you use Ten-Chi, ninjutsu turns into Raiton, a lightning strike that does a huge amount of single target damage, even more than Fuma Shuriken. Also, using just Chi still results in Fuma Shuriken. For single target, you should use Raiton, but for 2 or more targets, you should use Katon. At level 38, you learn the weapon skill Death Blossom, which is an AoE attack that is better than your 1-2-3 combo when there are 3 or more targets. Simply use it repeatedly, and remember to use Katon as well in those situations. At level 40, you learn the ability Assassinate, which does some damage but also sticks you to the target for a moment. You should use this on cooldown, however, whenever possible, you should make sure to use it after Mug to benefit from the damage bonus. You also learn the ability Shokuchi, which lets you quickly teleport to anywhere within 20 yalms. Many players prefer to use a macro to cause this action to teleport onto a target of their choice, as this makes it quicker to use. Under character configuration, you can also enable the 2 options Limit Ring Movement to targeting range and Press Action twice to execute, which allows you to press the action keybind twice to immediately teleport as close to where you're currently pointing as possible. At level 45, you learn the ability Jin, which is another mudra for ninjutsus. This gives you access to a whopping 4 new ninjutsus, not to mention that all of your previous ninjutsus gain an additional sequence to cast them. What ninjutsu you cast is determined by the last mudra you used before casting, alongside the number of unique mudras you used leading up to it. This means, for example, that Katon is always cast by using 2 mudras total, but finishing with 10. Let's take it from the top. Raiton is activated with Ten-Chi or Jin-Chi, and is still your strongest option for single target damage. Katon is activated with Chi-10 or Jin-10, and is a strong option for 2 or more targets. Hyoton is activated with Ten-Jin or Chi-Jin, and does much less damage than Raiton, but also binds your target, which may occasionally be useful. At higher level, you will learn a trait that makes this ninjutsu strong under certain circumstances. Doton is activated with Ten-Jin-Chi or Jin-Ten-Chi, which deals 80 potency of damage in an AoE up front, followed by 6 ticks of 80 potency over time, 1 tick every 3 seconds, adding up to a total of 560 potency. This means that on 2 or more targets, Doton is your strongest ninjutsu, assuming the enemies stay within for the full duration, and so should be placed and kept active in situations with 2 or more targets. Make use of the fact you can stockpile a ninjutsu to be able to keep Doton running. Also, take note that using Hide immediately removes Doton, so you cannot use Doton followed by Hide. If the enemies happen to move just as you're about to put down Doton, using Shakuchi just as the Doton animation starts playing allows you to reposition it, which is really handy sometimes. Suiton is activated with Ten-Chi-Jin or Chi-Ten-Jin, and in addition to doing a respectable amount of damage, applies the effect Shadow Walker to you that allows you to use Trick Attack as if you were hidden. You should use Suiton followed by Trick Attack whenever Trick Attack is available. When possible, use Mug before Trick Attack. Take note that the buff from Suiton lasts 20 seconds, so not only can you stockpile ninjutsu charges leading up to Trick Attack, but you can use Suiton up to 20 seconds before you intend to use Trick Attack, allowing you to possibly fit an extra ninjutsu in the buff. Huton is activated with Jin-Chi-10 or Chi-Jin-10, and is an AoE version of Suiton that beats it on 3 or more targets. However, while Huton applies Shadow Walker allowing you to use Trick Attack for a gain of 400 potency and a 10% damage bonus on 1 target, it also does 110 potency less than Katon. On 4 targets, you need to get the positional right on Trick Attack and also manage to do 4 Death Blossoms with the Trick Attacked enemy in range for Huton to be better than Katon. On 5 or more targets, Huton is simply not worth using at this level. To summarize, your ninjutsu's charges should be used as follows. On single target, use Suiton to use Trick Attack, up to 20 seconds in advance, unless there are 3 or 4 targets. In that case, you can use Huton instead, and if there's more targets than that, simply skip this step. Use Raiton during the Trick Attack debuff on single target. Try to stockpile charges outside of Trick Attack, and once Trick Attack is within 20 seconds of being ready, use Suiton to avoid capping out on ninjutsu charges. If you somehow have an extra charge and will cap out before this scenario, use Raiton to not overcap. On 2 or more targets, use Doton after Suiton or Huton, and use Katon at all other times. Just to clarify, on single target, you will need 1 ninjutsu for Suiton every minute to use Trick Attack, so you can use the 2 other ninjutsus you will stockpile over each minute for Raitons during Trick Attack. Also at level 45, you gain the trait Increase Attack Speed, which reduces your GCD by a whopping 15%, making your rotation go way faster. It also reduces the time between your auto attacks by the same amount, but this does not change anything for you. At level 50, you learn the ability Kassatsu, which allows you to use a ninjutsu without expending a charge, and also makes the next use do more damage. As the buff lasts 15 seconds, you can use Kassatsu a while in advance. On single target, use Kassatsu Raiton after Trick Attack, and it should be used after every Trick Attack. On 2 or more targets, you should use Kassatsu Doton, or, if you don't trust your tank to stay in the Doton, use Kassatsu Katon instead. You also learn the role action and ability True North, which makes all attacks with some sort of positional bonus like Aeolian Edge and Trick Attack automatically succeed. I recommend using True North whenever you intend to use Trick Attack to guarantee that damage at least. To summarize at level 50, let's cover an actual boss fight opener and rotation. If you don't have all of your ninjutsu charges before fight starts, make sure to use Hide to fill them up, and then right-click off the buff on your buff list. Start a fight by using Ten-Chi-Jin up to 6 seconds before the fight starts, and then, at the last moment just before the ninjutsu runs out, use Suiton as you run towards the target, and then weave Kassatsu. Then use Spinning Edge, weaving Mug, and Trick Attack. Then Gust Slash, weaving Assassinate, then use Ten-Chi Raiton twice. Then Aeolian Edge, Spinning Edge, and finish with another Raiton. This then leads to the general rotation. The ninja rotation revolves completely around the burst of damage every minute where Trick Attack maximizes your damage, and every 2 minutes where Mug increases it even further. During the downtime, you simply repeat your 1-2-3 combos while making sure to fulfill the positional on Aeolian Edge. Suiton can be used up to 20 seconds before Trick Attack is ready, so if you already have 1 ninjutsu charge and are about to get a second charge, using Suiton early to allow the cooldown to keep charging is beneficial. Whenever Trick Attack becomes ready, you simply use everything you have in a similar fashion to the opener burst, using both Mug, if available, and Trick Attack, Assassinate and Kassatsu Raiton. For AoE adjustments, replace your 1-2-3 combo with Death Blossom on 3 or more targets. For 2 or more targets, make sure Doton is placed and active if the enemies will live most of the duration, and replace Raiton with Katon. Kassatsu should be used on Doton in these cases. For 3 or 4 targets, replace Suiton with Huton, and for more targets than that, replace it with Katon. Remember, you can start every fight with 2 ninjutsu charges by using Hide and cancelling Hide. If you're playing with a tank that is actively avoiding your Doton casts, try to let them know what it is. It isn't very obvious. If that doesn't work, stay cool and simply use Katon instead. I recommend placing your mudras in a logical sequence such that you can more easily learn the muscle memory necessary to use the different ninjutsus, as this is by far the hardest part about initially learning the job. Be aware that attempting to use ninjutsus with a non-existing mudra combination, that is, by using any mudra more than once or weaving anything that isn't a mudra, will waste your ninjutsu cast, and instead place a harmless black mage bunny on your head. With that, let's continue on past level 50. At level 52, you learn the weapon skill Ninjutsu, which is the step 2 of your AoE combo. You should still use this AoE combo in place of your single target 1-3 combo when there are 3 or more targets. At level 54, you unlock the Kazematoi gauge and learn the weapon skill Armor Crush, which is an alternative combo finisher. While Aeolian Edge does extra damage from the back of an enemy, Armor Crush does extra damage from the side. Notably, Armor Crush also does more damage than Aeolian Edge by default, so as a starting point, you should use Armor Crush if you don't have any Kazematoi stacks. Whenever Armor Crush is used, you gain 2 Kazematoi stacks, and you can hold up to 5. When you use Aeolian Edge while you have at least 1 Kazematoi stack, Aeolian Edge does an additional 100 potency of damage and consumes 1 stack. As such, I recommend using Armor Crush as your finisher when you either have 0 stacks, or you're not benefiting from any damage buffs. Use Aeolian Edge if you have 4 or 5 Kazematoi stacks, or you're benefiting from a damage buff, or the fight is drawing to a close and you won't be able to spend all those Kazematoi stacks anyway. You should aim to finish a fight with as close to 0 Kazematoi stacks as possible, as otherwise you're leaving free damage on the table. As your burst window typically won't be long enough to fit more than 2 Aeolian Edges, if even that, it is also usually fine to stay at around 2 to 3 stacks. At level 56, Assassinate permanently upgrades to Dream Within a Dream, which hits 3 times for the listed potency, effectively more than doubling the damage that Assassinate did. This does not change how you use it, but fortunately, Dream Within a Dream does not lock your position on the enemy during the animation. Since level 50, your AoE combo has been extended with Ninjutsu, and your single target rotation has been expanded with maintaining Kazematoi with Armor Crush, as well as upgrading Assassinate to Dream Within a Dream. In your opener, use Armor Crush instead of the first Aeolian Edge. Aside from that, your opener is pretty much unchanged. At level 62, you unlock the Ninki gauge. Whenever you use a GCD, including Throwing Dagger, you gain 5 Ninki, up to a maximum of 100. You also learn the ability Hellfrog Medium, which spends 50 Ninki for some AoE damage. If possible, try to save as much Ninki as you can for whenever you apply Trick Attack to get more value out of the damage bonus. Make sure to use Hellfrog Medium if you reach 100 so you don't waste any. On AoE, it is better to weave Hellfrog Medium whenever it is available. At level 64, you learn the trait Enhanced Shakuchi, which resets the cooldown of Shakuchi whenever you cast Raiton, or Katon, or Hyoton, but don't use Hyoton. This does not really change how you play, but it is very helpful for mobility. At level 66, Mug is permanently upgraded to Dokumori, doubling its damage and also causing it to generate 40 Ninki on use. Make sure to be at 60 or below Ninki before using Dokumori so none of this value goes to waste. This will allow you to include Hellfrog Medium in your opener and probably an extra one every 2 minutes for your bursts. At level 68, you learn the ability Bahava Chakra, which is a single target alternative to Hellfrog Medium. Bahava Chakra is better than Hellfrog Medium on 1 or 2 targets and further increases the value in stockpiling Ninki for trick attack bursts. At level 70, you learn the ability Ten-Chi-Jin, not to be confused with the individual Mudra abilities Ten, Chi, and Jin. When cast, you must not move or it cancels preemptively. During Ten-Chi-Jin, when you use Mudras, you also automatically instantly cast a ninjutsu that is associated with your current combination, enabling you to cast a single target Mudra ninjutsu, 2 Mudra ninjutsu, and 3 Mudra ninjutsu in quick succession. There are 2 common sequences depending on what you need, one for single target and one for AoE. Let's start with the single target sequence. Ten, Fuma Shuriken, Chi, Raiton, Jin, Suiton. This enables you to follow up Ten-Chi-Jin with Trick Attack, although you would prefer to use Trick Attack before this big burst. This issue is resolved in a couple of levels, so don't worry too much about it. For AoE, the sequence is very different. Jin, Fume Shuriken, Ten, Katon, Chi, Doton. Here, it is important that Ten-Chi-Jin is used in close range to the enemy so Doton is placed correctly. Remember, however, if you can use Shukuchi fast enough after using Doton, you can shove the placement of Doton to where you need it to be. There are of course other combinations you can make, however, these two are the most useful for the two different combat scenarios you will typically face. The ninjutsus Hyoton and Huton should generally be completely avoided when using Ten-Chi-Jin. For Hyoton, because it simply isn't very helpful, and Huton, because any sequence that includes Huton cannot include Katon, and you would only use Huton on AoE anyway. Ten-Chi-Jin should be used on cooldown, and it should line up with the damage bonus from Dokumori consistently, which is more important on single target of course, but still useful on AoE. When using Ten-Chi-Jin on AoE, make sure Doton is placed with it instead of spending a regular ninjutsu charge on that. Use Kassatsu on Katon instead in these situations. Since level 60, you've unlocked the Ninki gauge, enabling you to stockpile some extra damage for bursts, or general attacking with Bahava Chakra or Hellfrog Medium between your GCDs. Remember that you must not weave OGCDs while you're weaving mudras. You also learned Ten-Chi-Jin, enabling a quick sequence of 3 mudras of increasing complexity. The important part is that Ten-Chi-Jin cancels early if you try to move during it, so watch out for that. For an opener example, up to 6 seconds before pull, weave the mudras for Suiton, and then use Suiton at the very last moment while running towards the target. Weave Kassatsu. Then use Spinning Edge and weave Dokumori and Trick Attack. Gust/Weaving Dream Within a Dream and Bahava Chakra, and then cast Raiton twice and weave Ten-Chi-Jin and fire off Ten, Chi and Jin in that order. Then use Armor Crush and finish with another Raiton. While using Ten-Chi-Jin this way leads to wasting the buff from the second Suiton, the alternative requires too many adjustments to the opener, and the overall damage difference is hardly noticeable, I would say. More importantly, such an opener would be obsolete by level 72. Speaking of which, at level 72, you learn the ability Meisui, which allows you to consume the buff from Suiton or Huton to generate an extra 50 Ninki. This is only useful when you use Ten-Chi-Jin with Suiton, leading to an extra Suiton buff you cannot use. This allows you to trade this buff for an extra Bahava Chakra or Hellfrog Medium. The only change necessary to the opener is to weave Meisui after the Ten-Chi-Jin Suiton, and then weave Bahava Chakra after the weapon skill after that. Huton Meisui Hellfrog Medium is also worth considering on AoE. However, take note that Huton takes about half a second longer to perform than Katon, meaning this alternative sequence would be less potency per second. It can, however, be considered more damage in the immediate present, which can be helpful in AoE pulls sometimes. At level 74, Shukuchi gets an extra charge, enabling you to use it more frequently. Your step 2 and 3 single target combos also get a potency boost, but this does not change your rotation. At level 76, Kassatsu is upgraded to improve certain ninjutsus while active. In particular, Katon turns into Gokamekyaku, which should be used on 3 or more targets instead of using Kassatsu on Doton. It also upgrades Hyoton, remember that one, to Hyosho Ranryu, which as a reminder is cast with Ten-Jin or Chi-Jin, and it does an absolutely absurd amount of damage. When Kassatsu is active, you should use Hyosho Ranryu over Raiton. This means the first Raiton in your opener should be replaced with Hyosho Ranryu instead. Hyosho Ranryu is also stronger than Gokamekyaku on 1 or 2 targets. Take note that both Hyosho Ranryu and Gokamekyaku also benefit from the 30% damage bonus of Kassatsu. At level 78, Aeolian Edge and Armor Crush are upgraded to grant 5 extra Ninki. This does not really change your rotation. At level 80, you learn the ability Bunshin, which at the cost of 50 Ninki makes your 5 next weapon skills do extra damage. It also adds an extra 5 Ninki on each of these weapon skills when used. This should be used on cooldown, even though the cooldown will mean that it often will be used separately from your other damage boosting cooldowns. To fit it into your opener, weave it after Dokumori and late weave Trick Attack on the next GCD, and Dream Within a Dream right after the GCD after that. You won't have the Ninki for the Bahava Chakra anyway. Since level 70, Meisui and Enhanced Kassatsu have improved the way you can work around Ninjutsus further. Additionally, you now generate even more Ninki, and Bunshin both improves your Ninki generation while it is active and boosts your weapon skill potencies. Let's go over the opener as it is now. Up to 6 seconds before combat starts, prepare Suiton and cast it as you run towards the target at the very last moment, weaving Kassatsu. Then Spinning Edge, you may find it helpful to weave True North here. Gust Slash and weave Dokumori and Bunshin. Then Armor Crush and late weave Trick Attack and then cast Hyosho Ranryu weaving Dream Within a Dream. Then Raiton, followed by Ten-Chi-Jin performing Ten-Chi-Jin. Immediately after the Suiton, weave Meisui and begin your 1-2-3 combo and weave Bahava Chakra. Once you have another ninjutsu charge, finish with another Raiton. At level 82, Bunshin is upgraded to turn into Phantom Kamaitachi when used, which can be used once per Bunshin. Phantom Kamaitachi is a weapon skill that does damage with an AoE component. It also generates Ninki. Take note that Phantom Kamaitachi's damage is considered to be produced by a pet, which means that it does slightly less damage than listed. Every time you use Bunshin, Phantom Kamaitachi should also be used. In your opener, push Dokumori and Bunshin to after Armor Crush, and then use Phantom Kamaitachi right after weaving Bunshin, and late weave Trick Attack there. This addition also means that the final Raiton should come up at the latest after 2 GCDs after Tenchi-Jin instead of 3. At level 84, your single target combo finishers generate a further additional 5 Ninki. Also, your Spinning Edge and Gust Slash get a potency boost. A notable change this provides is that your single target combo can be better on up to 3 targets due to doing almost the same damage as the AoE combo on 3 targets, while also generating more Ninki, which can be used for Hellfrog Medium. At level 86, you learn the pseudo ability Hollow Nozuchi, which automatically activates when you have Doton placed and cast either Hakkemujinsatsu, Katon, Gokamekyaku, or Phantom Kamaitachi. Essentially, when you cast an AoE GCD other than Death Blossom. This means that if Doton is placed on 3 or more targets, your AoE filler is once again superior on exactly 3 targets as well as more targets. It also makes Doton a lot more powerful on AoE pulls in general. At level 88, Meisui is upgraded to cause the next Bahava Chakra you cast to have a potency of 500, increasing it by 150 effectively. It is unclear from the tooltip, but it only affects 1 Bahava Chakra. This potency boosted Bahava Chakra is better than Hellfrog Medium on exactly 3 targets. At level 90, Raiton is upgraded to grant a stack of the buff Raiju Ready. You can have up to 3 of these, but using a melee weapon skill that does not spend Raiju Ready stacks will cause you to drop all of the stacks immediately. You also learn the 2 weapon skills Forked Raiju and Fleeting Raiju. Both of these actions spend a Raiju Ready stack, where Forked Raiju additionally dashes to your target, while Fleeting Raiju just does the attack. In most cases, you will be using Fleeting Raiju rather than Forked Raiju. At any time where you plan to use a single target weapon skill like Spinning Edge or Aeolian Edge, while you have Raiju ready, instead use Fleeting Raiju. This single target potency boost also makes Raiton better than Doton and Katon on 2 targets. Since level 80, Phantom Kamaitachi and the Raiju Ready effect has expanded your single target rotation. Hollow Nozuchi has also upgraded your Doton AoE damage somewhat. For your opener, up to 6 seconds before combat starts, weave the Mudras for Suiton, and then use it at the last second and weave Kassatsu as you run up to the enemy. Then use Spinning Edge, Gust Slash, Armor Crush, and then weave Dokumori and Bunshin. Then use Phantom Kamaitachi and late weave Trick Attack. Then use Hyosho Ranryu and weave Dream Within a Dream. Then Raiton weaving Tenchi-Jin into Ten-Chi-Jin for Huma Shuriken, Raiton, Suiton. And then weave Meisui and use Fleeting Raiju weaving Bahava Chakra, another Fleeting Raiju, Raiton into 1 more Fleeting Raiju weaving Bahava Chakra again. At level 92, Trick Attack permanently upgrades into Kunai's Bane, which removes the requirement to be used behind the target for maximum damage. It also increases the damage of the attack and also adds an AoE component to the attack, which indeed applies a damage increasing effect to all the nearby enemies. This means that on AoE, you should always use Huton followed by Kunai's Bane to open the fight with, so the rest of your AoE burst gets to benefit from Kunai's Bane. Naturally, Huton with Kunai's Bane is a lot stronger than Katon on any number of targets. At level 94, Second Wind is upgraded to heal you more, and your 1-2-3 combos, Huma Shuriken, Raiton, Suiton, Raijus, and Bahava Chakra all get a potency boost. The notable change this causes is that the 1-2-3 combos are slightly better than the AoE 1-2 combo on 3 targets due to a combination of the increased potency and the greater Ninki gauge. This does not apply when Bunshin is in effect, and also you do need to get the positionals right. At level 96, Dokumori is upgraded to grant the Higi effect for 30 seconds. This causes Bahava Chakra to turn into Seisho Meppo, and Hellfrog Medium to turn into Hellfrog Large. I mean, Deathfrog Medium. Man, what a lost opportunity. Notably, Seisho Meppo also gains the same potency boost as Bahava Chakra does from Meisui, so you don't have to worry about that. Deathfrog Medium is of course still better than Seisho Meppo on 3 or more targets, so ultimately this upgrade changes nothing for your rotation. At level 98, Feint is upgraded to last 15 seconds instead of 10. This does not change how you use it. At level 100, Ten-Chi-Jin is upgraded to grant Tenri Jindo ready for 30 seconds when used. Ten-Chi-Jin also turns into Tenri Jindo while you have this effect. Tenri Jindo is an ability that hits incredibly hard with an AoE component, so it should be used whenever you have the option to. Try to make sure it lands within your damage buffs. To round off, let's first talk about an opener followed by general rotation as well as how to work with the 2-minute burst. And finally, let's briefly touch on stat priorities on gear. Ninja is known to have a handful of different openers, however, I will focus on the one known as the 3rd GCD Dokumori, as it has the least amount of asterisks to worry about. Let's begin. 6 seconds before combat starts, prepare Mudras for Suiton, and 1 second before combat starts, cast Suiton and run towards the target. Weave Kassatsu as you do. Start with Spinning Edge, and if you intend to use a gem draft, this is the time. After that, Gust Slash followed by Armor Crush weaving Dokumori and Bunshin. Then use Phantom Kamaitachi and late weave Kunai's Bane. Then use Hyosho Ranryu weaving Dream Within a Dream, Raiton weaving Ten-Chi-Jin into Ten-Chi-Jin and weave Meisui after the Suiton. Then use Fleeting Raiju weaving Seisho Meppo and Tenri Jindo. Fleeting Raiju again, Raiton, and finish with Fleeting Raiju weaving Bahava Chakra. This then leads to the general rotation. The ninja rotation revolves entirely around the burst every minute centered on Kunai's Bane. The only exception being Bunshin being available every 90 seconds, which should be used on cooldown. Make sure to stockpile Ninki gauge to use it exactly as it becomes available. While Kunai's Bane is late weaved in the opener, both it and Dokumori should be weaved as soon as possible outside of an opener. Remember that Suiton's buff lasts 20 seconds, so you can use it way in advance to make sure Kunai's Bane can be used exactly when it is available. This allows you to align such that you can fit 2 Raitons in every Kunai's Bane burst, making Suiton the only ninjutsu you use during downtime. At the earliest, up to 20 seconds before Kunai's Bane, and at the latest, before you cap out on ninjutsu charges. Kassatsu can also be used way in advance to get its cooldown started. During downtime, you simply use 1-2-3 combos, making sure to use Armor Crush when you have space for Kazematoi, Aeolian Edge if you don't. During bursts, assuming you have Kazematoi, Aeolian Edge is always the preferred choice. If a fight has periods where it can be difficult to reach a specific positional, it may be handy to stay at around 2 or 3 Kazematoi so you have the flexibility to use either Armor Crush or Aeolian Edge depending on what is convenient at the time. Stockpile Ninki for your bursts as best you can, but remember that Dokumori grants 40 and Ten-Chi-Jin allows you to gain a further 50 as well. Basically, all of your cooldowns aside from Bunshin and Phantom Kamaitachi should be used during Kunai's Bane, and Dokumori when possible. Aim for approximately the same order as in the opener, although it is very likely things will drift around a bit throughout a fight. The important part is that all of the attacks land during your damage buffs. Whenever you use Raiton, remember to use Fleeting Raiju to spend the buff before returning to your 1-2-3 combos. When Bunshin happens to align with your burst, you of course want to use that too, although Phantom Kamaitachi specifically itself may sometimes take a backseat over stronger attacks like Fleeting Raiju or an Aeolian Edge with a Bunshin stack. For AoE adjustments, open with Huton on 3 targets when Kunai's Bane is an option, and replace Raiton with Doton when there are 3 targets. Raiton with Fleeting Raiju is better than Doton and Katon on 2 targets. Also on 3 targets, make sure to keep Doton active and use Gogamekyaku instead of Hyosho Ranryu when Kassatsu is available. Bahava Chakra should also be replaced with Hellfrog Medium. Ten-Chi-Jin should be performed in melee range with the sequence Jin Ten Chi instead to cast Katon and Doton instead. Although, if for some reason the pack moves or you accidentally use Ten-Chi-Jin out of range, you can use Shukuchi right after the Doton to sometimes be able to shuffle it over to where you need it to be. Take note of not placing Doton manually if Ten-Chi-Jin is available. On 4 or more targets, replace your 1-2-3 combo with the AoE 1-2 combo. Dokumori, Dream Within a Dream, and Bunshin can be used in the same way as on single target. And if Bunshin is active on 3 targets, your AoE filler combo should be used instead of the 1-2-3 combo as well. Now, for the 2-minute burst, Ninja pretty much does the same thing as the opener, except Bunshin may not be available sometimes, and sometimes you may enter the burst with extra Ninki. As such, there is not much to add here. Make sure Dokumori is used before trick attack and place all of the cooldowns and bursts within the buff window. Depending on which opener you use, it may sometimes be worthwhile to let Dokumori drift a GCD to align better with raid buffs. However, with the opener taught in this guide, this should not be necessary. Finally, regarding stat priorities, take note that in nearly every single case, item level beats out optimal secondary stats. This means you should always prioritize gear with higher item level, as long as it has dexterity on it. After that, Ninja's stat priority is critical hit, then determination and direct hit. Determination and direct hit are almost identical in value, with determination being a tiny bit better, and since they benefit from each other, aim to have about equal amounts of both, but slightly more determination if given the choice. But critical hit is still way more important than either one. The only benefit Ninja sees from skill speed is getting a minuscule amount of extra Ninki and GZDs over the course of a fight. In general, you don't want any skill speed if you can manage it. However, do remember that higher item level is almost always more important. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support me and my channel more directly, you can become a member like these wonderful people here. You can also alternatively support me through Ko-Fi, link in the description. You can also support the channel by letting the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. Fun fact, at the very start of Dawntrail, a bug, and I suppose an oversight in the tooltip, made it so that Huton actually did fire damage rather than wind damage. Under nearly all circumstances, elemental damage types don't matter, with a core exception being Blue Mage's Mask Carnival. However, there are enemies in the Deep Dungeon Palace of the Dead that are notably weak to wind damage, just as an example. Whether this actually made any difference whatsoever, I cannot say.